And let us collectively say that moving forward from this convention, there is a new breeze blowing through CUPE in Ontario and CUPE National. And that breeze is going to be total cooperation on the issues that you vote on convention floor, because you voted for this several times. And we need it. And that's not fighting with CUPE National. You know, there's logic behind what we're saying, and we've proven it time after time. And the agenda for change that we put in place was not meant to be a swipe at the National Union. It's about a recognition that we're moving into a new economic era, and we need to do things a little bit differently. And we are. We're having those successes, and we're saying let's build on them. And at the same time, I want to commend Paul and Claude, because we had a huge fight at the National Convention and before it around the possibility of putting in place a fund that would help those members who may have to engage in political strikes. That was a serious battle, sisters and brothers, and some people thought it was, oh, here goes Ontario fighting with the National, and there's a big split in our union. No, there's not. Take a look at it, sisters and brothers. It says CUPE. There's only one CUPE in this country. We all belong to it, sisters and brothers. We're all proud members of it, sisters and brothers, and we're all going to fight for it. CUPE National, CUPE Ontario, CUPE Regional Office. That's what it's all about, sisters and brothers. And that fund is now in place. And let me tell you, and I want to finish on this point. Because the challenges are indeed the sectors. We've got to look and move them collectively forward. There's nothing clearer in my mind. There's nothing clearer in my mind that we need diversity inside of our union to be front and centre. If those children sitting there doesn't drive it home for his sisters and brothers, nothing will. And when I went into Kelly O'Sullivan's local and I looked around that room, again, I saw nothing but diversity from the four corners of the world. And they were so proud to be CUPE. They were up singing songs of solidarity, singing songs about CUPE. They were just delighted. These were workers like $10 an hour, $11 an hour. And they were just so proud to be part of this union. And I could see on their face, I could see some hope that maybe at the end of this rainbow, maybe there is a bit of a pot of gold. Maybe I might get a little bit of a pension plan. And I just checked with Kelly before I came up here to speak, because I thought my ears were deceiving me. There was a woman at the back of the hall, and I can't believe this. A sister came up to me and said, "Do you see that woman at the back of the hall? How old do you think she is, Sid?" I said, "Maybe mid-60s. She's 84 years of age. 84 years of age. And she still has to work. She cannot afford to retire at 84 years of age as a PSW in local 4308. That sister is still working because he don't have a pension plan. And I'm telling you, there's no way in hell that employer is going to give them a pension plan. There's only one way it's going to happen, sisters and brothers. We as a union have to say that we will indeed go out and organise them into a critical mass where we have 10 or 12,000 of them, and we put it to this government that it's an moral obligation to fund these workers who are doing this work in the PSWs, because what they're trying to do is move them out of the hospitals and move them into home care, where they're getting workers for $10 an hour with no pension plan and no benefits. That's wrong, sisters and brothers. That's wrong for CUPE to allow that to happen. And we've got to mobilise them. We've got to mobilise them into one big voting bloc. And the final word I want to say is, and it's the biggest challenge facing us all, and it's coming, sisters and brothers. Believe me, it's happening. Because it happened during the TTT strike. And we've got local too, they're here, they've got about 600 members who went out on strike with the TTC workers. And they're legislated back to work in the blink of an eye. That's a shame indeed. The bigger shame was when politicians began to pile on and said, this is an essential service. We should take the right to strike away from these workers. How dare they abandon the public in the middle of the night? How dare they have the right to strike? Take it off them. It's an essential service to be a bus driver. It's a public health issue. And then David Miller jumps in. By the way, we helped to get him elected. David Miller jumps in and says, well, I'm reconsidering my support whether or not I should be looking at essential services legislation. Maybe we'll take a look at that. It's a good idea. And then we get all the right-wingers on council. They smell blood. All the right-wingers are in there. Yeah, let's take the right to strike off these workers. And I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, my God, where's the labour movement here, sisters and brothers? Wait a minute. If you take the right to strike off of bus drivers because it's a public health risk, what are they going to say when the sanitation workers in Toronto go out and strike? and been out on strike for 10 days. Isn't that a public health risk? Let's take the strike off them as well. And Dalton McGuinty says if Miller presents him with a motion to say, consider taking the right to strike off the TTC workers, Dalton McGuinty is willing to bring that into the legislature and take it away. Well, let me tell you, I was in Saskatchewan just a few weeks ago. And if you think it's a far-fetched idea, just you take a look at Bill 5 and Bill 6 in Saskatchewan right now. They brought in essential services legislation, the right-wing government, that puts everybody, including university workers, under essential services legislation, essentially taking the right to strike off of every public sector worker in the province of Saskatchewan. And I say to David Miller, once you move down that road and you start to open up that door a little bit for bus drivers, I know that the sanitation workers in Local 416 is not far behind. I also know that welfare workers who are delivering welfare checks to the needy are not far behind. I also know that the childcare workers who will also feel the same way. I know that school teachers will be told, you're an essential service. Before we know where we are, sisters and brothers, we'll have the Mayor of Hamilton saying, if it's good enough for David Miller, I want to take the right to strike off of what's local? 5167, 905 up in York region. Kingston, you name it, sisters and brothers, they'll all be in there looking to take the right to strike off them. And I'm saying, where's the Labour movement in this question? And I'll tell you where I stand on it, sisters and brothers. And then I'm going to be coming to each and every one of you in this fall if they turn around and introduce that legislation, because we are going to have to draw the line in the sand in CUPE, because that will be the demise of our bargaining power in every single sector and in every single local. And the question will be, sisters and brothers, are you prepared to take the strike votes if that happens? Are you prepared to say to Dalton McGuinty that CUPE won't stand for the right to strike to be taken away from any one of our sectors? And if they take it away from the TTC, who's going to be next? And are we going to stand up and say, no, CUPE is bigger than that, CUPE is better than that? And then I want to say to Smokey Thomas, hey Smokey, help us out. You said last night you would. Wayne Fraser and the steel workers. Let's make this an issue, sisters and brothers. Let's make this the line in the sand that creates the revitalisation of the labour movement in this province. Let's show them once and for all that you cannot take the basic right for free collective bargaining away from workers in this province. That's what we stand for, sisters and brothers. That's it. Free and fair collective bargaining. Thank you very, very much.